You ever have one of those days where you walk into your own house and just know, instantly, you've crossed into some alternate universe? That was me last Tuesday. I'm Darius Johnson, 34, IT consultant, mostly work from home, except for the kind of day where the main server at the office downtown decides to throw a full-blown tantrum. What was supposed to be a 2-hour pit stop turned into 8 hours of tech hell. So by the time I got home, I was one good couch flop away from total collapse. But the second I turned the key, everything in me went on high alert. There was this weird thumping from upstairs, someone moving furniture maybe. My son Kobe was at his mom's for the week, so the house should have been dead quiet. My heart was racing. I set my laptop down, grabbed the baseball bat I keep by the closet, because, single black dad in Scottsdale, Riverside Meadows, you don't take chances. You just don't. I crept up the stairs, every creak making my blood pressure spike, and that's when I heard her voice. A woman, chatting on the phone like she owned the place. "Almost done clearing out this room for Trevor's art supplies," she said. In that voice you just know belongs to someone who's never been told no in her entire life. The previous occupant left so much junk behind. Previous occupant. She was talking about my son like he was a stray cat. And my house. Bought it 3 years ago after the divorce. Paid every dime fair and squared as I got to Kobe's door. It was obvious who it was. Brenda Hutchinson, 43, queen bee of our HOA. Bleached hair, leopard print everything. Yoga pants that might as well be a uniform. She'd made my life hell ever since I moved in. Code enforcement calls over trash cans out 10 minutes too early. Complaints about Kobe's basketball hoop. All of it. But this wasn't just some neighborhood beef. She was in my house, boxing up my kids' stuff, labeling boxes, Trevor's art storage, and shoving Kobe's clothes and books in like she had every right. The sight of Kobe's favorite stuffed elephant tossed in a trash bag. Yeah, that almost broke me. I forced myself to breathe, pull out my phone, start recording. Brenda doesn't do anything unless she's sure she's got some twisted HOA bylaw to back her up. And right there on Kobe's desk were official-looking papers with the HOA letterhead. This was planned. I stepped into the doorway, voice ice cold. "What exactly do you think you're doing in my son's bedroom?" Brenda spun around, phone still pressed to her ear, not even a flicker of embarrassment. "Oh, Darius, I was just about to call you. I'm helping transition this space for its new purpose." She waved one of those documents at me like it was a golden ticket. According to HOA Bylaw 47C subsection 12, any property unoccupied more than 14 days can be reassigned for community storage. She'd been tracking us. Said Kobe's room was vacant, that she'd been monitoring the situation. She had a key. A key. I'm running through every possible way she could have gotten it. Then I remember that old realtor lockbox I never bothered to remove. My own mistake, but still, what kind of person does this? She claimed emergency HOA protocols let her step in and dared me to call the cops, acting like she was doing me a favor because Trevor needs the space. Then came the snide remark, unlike some children who just leave toys around. And there it was, the casual racism, the sense that she believed her kid deserved my kid's room. I told her to get out, but she held up another document, claiming a court order. This wasn't some breakdown. This was a full-on, months-in-the-making attack. And I wasn't having IT.so I called 911. She called 911, too, loud enough so my dispatcher could hear, crying about an aggressive black man threatening her while she conducted official HOA business. It would have been hilarious if it weren't so dangerous. I spelled it out for the dispatcher. I'm a black homeowner, came home, found a white woman in my house, going through my kid's stuff. She claims HOA authorization. She called 911 on me. The dispatcher kept me on the line, told me to stay calm. Meanwhile, Brenda was putting on a performance for the ages. Tears, hand clutching her chest, the whole damsel in distress routine. The police showed up. One white male, clearly a veteran. One younger black female officer with the no-nonsense look of someone who'd seen it all. Brenda launched right in. "Officers, thank God you're here. I was so scared. He's intimidating me. I'm just trying to enforce community standards. Officer Williams, the younger cop, cut right to the heart. Ma'am, what kind of authorized business involves packing someone else's belongings? When Brenda waved her papers, Officer Patterson, the older cop, asked, "Is this your residence?" I handed over my ID, mortgage docs. "I own this house. This is my son's room. And I never gave her permission to be here." Then Brenda, desperate, flashes the key. Officer Patterson's face darkened. "Where'd you get that key?" Brenda stammered about the lockbox and monitoring property conditions, but Williams was having none of it. "Ma'am, are you saying you entered Mr. Johnson's home because you don't like his son's music preferences?" Brenda doubled down, talked about demographic concerns, urban influences, and community standards. Mask off, racism out in the open. She even started ranting about Kobe's superhero posters being inappropriate for the neighborhood aesthetic. That's when Patterson snapped his notebook shut and said, "Ma'am, I'm placing you under arrest for burglary and criminal trespass." Brenda went pale, still trying to justify herself as the officers cuffed her, babbling about protecting the neighborhood. As they let her out, I felt that hard-earned sense of satisfaction, justice at last. But I knew this wasn't over. An hour later, Detective Sarah Martinez from Scottsdale PD showed up, laying out all Brenda's paperwork on my coffee table. "That court order," she said, "is a fake. Downloaded from a legal forms site, never filed, never signed. And there's no bylaw 47C. Only 32 in total, and none allow entry into people's homes." Then the bombshell. Brenda had been removed as HOA president 6 months ago. She'd been impersonating an official, harassing minority families, keeping surveillance notes on us for years. My son's schedule, his birthday parties, even how long his bike was on the lawn. Detective Martinez said the FBI had been notified that Brenda's campaign of harassment qualified as a federal hate crime. That night, my phone blew up, neighbors calling to apologize, confessed they'd noticed weird things but hadn't realized how far Brenda had gone. One, Tom Williams, even had photos, Brenda with binoculars, a telephoto camera, and handwritten logs about suspicious activity, which meant my kid playing basketball or us having more than 2 cars in the driveway. Then Janet Kim, a Korean-American lawyer from 2 streets over, brought over a folder. Brenda had targeted her family too, with bogus HOA violations over everything from gardening to illegal business claims because her mother-in-law gave cooking lessons. She didn't move on, she escalated. Janet told me, showing texts from her daughter, embarrassed and wanting to move. I realized just how wide Brenda's net was. Soon after, Detective Martinez and an FBI agent, David Park, sat down in my living room with files, surveillance photos, and audio recordings. At least 7 families targeted, coordinated complaints, demographic strategy sessions among neighbors, a whole campaign to make minority families uncomfortable enough to leave. Federal charges, hate crime investigations, civil suits. Suddenly, Brenda's kingdom of petty power was crumbling. 3 months later, I sat in court watching her get sentenced. Guilty of civil rights violations, housing discrimination, burglary, trespassing, false police reports. 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, 500 hours of civil rights community service, permanent restraining orders. Janet Kim led a civil lawsuit, and the settlement was enough to make anyone with Brenda's mindset think twice before trying something similar. And here's the twist. Riverside Meadows thrived without her. People actually started talking to each other. The neighbors who almost moved decided to stay and built the gardens they'd always wanted. My son could play basketball, invite friends, just be a kid. Even Brenda's precious, artistic son ended up getting arrested for vandalism, spray painting the mailboxes Brenda once swore she was protecting. The irony? Property values went up anyway, just not for the reasons she'd imagined. 6 months after her sentencing, Brenda sent me a letter from prison, a masterpiece of self-justification, framing her campaign as protecting community standards, still unable to admit the real reason behind her actions. I tossed it in the trash. You can't fix people who refuse to see themselves clearly, and honestly, some folks spend their whole lives trying to keep the wrong kind of people out, never realizing they were the problem all along. So yeah, Brenda changed the character of Riverside Meadows, but not the way she planned. Sometimes karma comes wrapped in a court order and a for rent sign. And you know what? I hope people hear this and realize silence is how these things fester. If you've ever been part of a community where this stuff happens, don't wait for someone else to stand up. Speak out. That's the only way justice ever moves in. Tell me, what would you have done? When is it time to fight back for what's right? Let's hear your take.